Welcome to Swish Theory. Welcome back. This is our second episode of the season. My name is Chris Amundsen. I'm your host along with my friend Larro Golden. Larro, what a week in Bulls land it has been. We've had 3 games. 2 of them have been absolute blowout losses. And then the one against the Raptors was one of the worst games I have ever seen in my life. And an uninspiring overtime win in which Alex Caruso and DeMar DeRozan just put the team on their back. And that was sandwiched between a blowout loss to the Thunder in their home opener that they lost by 20 to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and company, and then the Cade Cunningham-led Pistons just yesterday. So the takes are already flying, as you might imagine. Everyone is in the crosshairs of the fans' ire, but there's been some specific complaints, and so I wanted to talk about those 3 games a little bit, and then talk about what's been discussed in the media and among fans, and then we'll also take a look at what's coming up this next week. But first of all, how has your week been aside from watching these Bulls games?
Man, well, outside of the Bulls, I mean, everything same old. My son is really taken into soccer, and he's becoming pretty good at it, which is crazy. I've never played soccer. I've always admired it, but it's really cool to see my son fall in love with the sport and actually be pretty good at it. So, outside of that, man, I mean, living life. So, and trying, it used to be like, life is just kind of wearing you down. So you can't wait to sit down and watch some of the Chicago Bulls. And now it's totally opposite. It's kind of, I don't even want to really sit down and watch them that much right now, but, just so we can do this pod at a high level, obviously I try to, I sit down and watch. So, man, it's tough, man. It really is.
Just really last week, we were saying how excited we were to be back, but check back in February with us. It has been 1 week, and you're already talking about how it's a chore to watch the Bulls. So that's not a great sign. By the way, your son, when people say, "Oh, he's a golden child," or "He's the golden boy," your son literally is the golden child. I just hope you understand that when parents talk about that.
That's pretty cool. I never really thought about it like that. No coaches really called him anything but Caden yet, but it's really cool to think about that, though. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, he had just an amazing last name, and I'm very jealous of it. But as I was telling you off air, I threw out my back this morning somehow, so I must be old because I have been just kind of laying on my back in pain all day today. So it's been really exciting, but it gave me the chance to watch and rewatch a lot of the Bulls plays and sets and kind of their performance. So there's a whole lot to get into.
Yeah,
with the Bulls. Let's start with the first home opener against the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Bulls actually were pretty competitive for the first half. Yeah. I think they ended up up at the half, but it was just kind of tough sledding in that third quarter. Everything kind of started falling apart. It was very similar to the preseason, where that first game against the Bucks, we kind of saw what the Bulls really wanted to do. They were driving, they were penetrating into the paint, getting kickouts for 3. And then in that third quarter of the Thunder game, the wheels started to fall off. The Thunder built a big lead, and it kind of really never just came back. So a couple of positives. Let's start, because I know there's a lot of negatives to get to, but the positives from that first game is they did take 42 3-point attempts, which is way better than before. They never even broke 30 as a team across the entire year last year, which was last in the league. So 42 attempts. Unfortunately, they only made 12, which is 28.6% of that. And I think that was a big difference in the game, because the Thunder took 39 and made 19, which is almost half. So that was a big factor in the game. But I would say there were a couple grenades and a couple maybe bad threes. But overall, I thought the shots that they generated were pretty quality from 3, and they got into the paint with relative ease. Just a really, really, really poor shooting night. So what about that performance either gave you pause or gave you some encouragement from that Thunder game?
Okay, let's come at this, head on. Okay, so I think you mentioned it. The 42 threes, really, really encouraging. That this is a team last year that it was almost like they were allergic to taking threes as a team, and to see that number be 42, that was really cool. Obviously, it's tough only making 12, but I just got to say, man, I mean, that first half was fine, but in the second half, I think I think the Bulls just defensively just weren't as connected. I mean, your star scorer in Zach LaVine is just not scoring the ball the way he usually does. It was just tough sledding, man. It really was tough sledding in that second half. You got a young and up and coming Oklahoma City Thunder team that are ready to kind of, step foot and knock the door down in the West and let people know that, like, they're not just, young guys having fun. They're young guys that are here to compete at a high level. And when you got a guy like Shea, just absolutely, and coming off an all NBA season, I mean, that guy really just makes bucket scoring, look easy. And the cool thing about him, he's so young, but he has a mature game, and how he gets his team involved, and he doesn't take bad shots. Really, he's just a guy that plays the right way. So it's really cool to see the Thunder. But in terms of the Bulls, man, I mean, they got some things to figure out. They gotta find some synergy. Sometimes offense looks disconnected. Sometimes there's been a lot of grenade throwing, like also like what you mentioned. And to me, a lot of times that's just guys like trying to get their own bucket and they can't get it, so they just pop it off to somebody else, and it's not good basketball. You just after that game, you were just hoping, okay, 42 threes, okay, let's go. Like, as long as they can keep that number up, there's no way they're only going to make 12. Like, these guys, there's some good shooters in here, So, yeah, man. I mean, that's the way I was thinking about it after that first game.
Yeah, I thought there were some positives there. I thought Torrey Craig came in. He hit 3 or 4 threes. He did have the 1 3 that was wide open that he hit off the side of the backboard, but
Yeah.
3 or 4 overall. Carter, Caruso, Craig, those 3 come in and just wreak a lot of havoc on defense. And I actually thought Pat Williams played really good defense on Shea throughout the game. I know Shea had 31 and 10, but he is so tough to guard. He can get anywhere he wants in the paint. He's so methodical with it. As you said, he doesn't really take a lot of ill-advised threes. He just weaves his way until he gets to his spot, and just a phenomenal player to watch. Same with Josh Giddey. Josh Giddey, just a really great passer, even though he kind of struggles with shooting at times. He also went 2 of 3 from 3, and just kind of found himself, in the post area all the time, just getting little stuff up. And he also is really, really good sideline out of bounds passer, just incredibly good. And also Jalen Williams, who we talked about as my most improved player pick, had a really nice game to start off. Had 16 and 5 in the first game back. So just, encouraging performance from the Thunder, who I think are going to be a playoff team this year.
Yeah.
But the Bulls have always kind of struggled with the Thunder, even when they were rebuilding. It seemed like they would always kind of underestimate them. And, this game, they just never seemed to be in a rhythm at all. And I know we're going to get to that theme as we talk about the next 2 games as well. But these 3 stars in Zach DeMar and Vooch they just don't really mesh very well. They don't have a lot of synergy between them. And, it's like all of them have good intentions and want to win and want to play the right way. But there just doesn't seem to be a really clear pecking order with them. They all kind of view themselves in the same light. as each other. And so none of them really think, oh, I should give the ball up to this guy because he's got it going, or he's the guy on our team. All three of them think that they're the guy. And so, Vooch has said he wants more touches. He wants to play more, through him as a short roll passer in the post, all these different things. Hasn't really happened a lot. And DeMar and Zach are great isolation scorers. They can get it going, as Zach showed us in against Detroit. But there's just not a whole lot of synergy there. And so it doesn't really matter. When we were talking about this, I was talking about this on Twitter, but this is really the major issue, I think, with the Bulls is that these three stars, your stars are supposed to make your role players look better. They're supposed to bring that cohesion. And here it's like the role players are following what the stars are doing. It looks disjointed out there. It looks like they're trying to find their way. And it looks like they, a lot of times are just trying to play off them, but the stars don't play off each other very well. So it just doesn't look like a team. And it's what the front office said, that their perception of the team was that they didn't really play for each other. They weren't playing as a team. And they tried to fix that this offseason with, training camp in Nashville and all these different things and bringing in guys that, were dogs on defense that could hit threes. But ultimately, I think the problem is has remained the same from the moment of this group's inception. And that's just they either aren't good enough or aren't good enough together to justify sticking with this core. So getting right to the heart of the matter here, in my mind. But there's a lot of symptoms here, but the root cause has kind of always been the same. And I'm not really sure that we're going to see a whole lot of positive changes until that is shaken up. Now, I do think that the Bulls are a better team than this. They've shown that. Like, this is a playoff caliber team as far as talent's concerned. But the cohesion just hasn't been there despite their best efforts. And I'm not really sure what the solution is at this point, other than to start making roster changes. So what do you think about it, Larro? Do you think that that's the only way to go about it, or do you think that there's some hope with this group that they can kind of gel offensively and get it together this season?
Man, I think it's one of those things right now where, if you didn't have data from previous seasons, you'd say, man, it's only 3 games, we'll give them some time. But there is data, and it continues to say that this group is just not good enough. And I think the front office has to be honest with themselves and say, okay, is this group good enough? If not, they got to figure out, do they want to just move one piece and configure different things, or are they ready to just say, you know what, let's just sell it off, let's have a fire sale and let's try to do this the right way. It does ultimately suck that if they did choose that route, it would not be for Wemby or Cooper Flag. But anyway, I just think that, me personally, I think I've seen enough where it's time. Either to me, I'd move DeMar, get him somewhere, try to get as much as you can, or at least something respectable back. I know Vooch is hard to move right now because of that contract, and there are teams that like a Grizzlies that need a big, and I think Vooch would be interesting there with his screening ability and his ability to kind of play inside out. I think he'd be very interesting there. But I don't know, man. The front office continues. They seem to don't want to give in, and I don't know if it's like, I know Eversley is very close. He's got a good relationship with DeMar, and maybe that also plays a part into it where he doesn't want to kind of just sell him off. But who knows, man? Me personally, I would, it's time. It's time to move on. It's time to, say, hey, we made a mistake. And to be let's be honest too, like, I don't know how I would feel when you put together a team that was number 1 in the East, and I mean the most crucial part of that team has been out. And I don't know, maybe they just don't want to give in because they've seen it. They've seen it at a high level, and maybe that's what it is. But at the end of the day, I think the best, leaders, I think, the best GMs and front office people, they see their mistakes and they try to right them right away. Not so much put a Band-Aid over it, but hey, let's rip the Band-Aid off and let's treat this thing the right way, and we'll go at it full strength next time. So I hope at some point that happens where they're just ready to rip the Band-Aid off and let's put some Neosporin in it. Let's give it some time. Let's, but hey, man, yeah, I'm ready to move on. Kind of, that's just where I'm at.
Yeah. As you said, if this were just a regular 3-game sample, we'd have pretty different opinions. And I do think, even though it's been poor through 3 games, we've seen it work a lot better than this. I think they're a much better team than this. But ultimately, I'm not sure what the ceiling is here. And as you said, there's probably spots for DeRozan and Vooch and even Zach LaVine around the league at some point. And I think, I'm pretty confident that if there's not major improvement, that there's going to be major changes. Whether or not they're going to do a rebuild is up in the air. We've been told over and over again that that's not really in the cards for this front office. So, what are they going to do? Maybe they're going to trade for James Harden or something and try and do that. I just hope that if they do something like that they're smart with those assets and they're not just like trading LaVine for Harden or something ridiculous. But yeah, the group has kind of run its course, even though we've seen it at a high level. It's just not going to happen again. And no, Vooch was pretty frustrated in that first game, and there was that what was called a players only meeting, but it really wasn't. It was the players were in the locker room, they were chatting it up, the coaches were doing their thing, and then after the coaches were done talking, as usual, they come into the locker room to talk to the players. And when Billy Donovan came into the room, he saw that they were in the middle of a discussion. He asked, "Hey, do you guys kind of want to finish your discussion? Do you guys want a moment?" And they said, "Yeah." And so he walked back out and waited. So it wasn't a players only meeting. It was, players chatting in the locker room. But
yeah,
it definitely seemed like Vooch was upset about the offense. That is kind of the same old, which is true. I mean, we haven't really seen much change, and clearly the Thunder game showed it, exposed it pretty badly as non-functional or not satisfactory to what the players want and what the coaching want and what the city of Chicago wants. So, looking for a short-term picture, I think the Bulls are going to be better than this. Like, we're just looking through in 3 games of data, right? We're talking about performances. Vooch right now, he's at 11.3 points per game, which would be the worst since his rookie season. He's at 41.2% field goal percentage, which would be a career low. 22% from 3, which would be a career low, or tied with a career low. He's averaging almost 2.4 fouls a game. Like, his assists are at a career low, or since like 2014. It's just he's played really poorly. He's just not shooting the ball well at all. And then you look at Zach LaVine, same thing. He's shooting 41% from the field. He brought it to 32% after his monster game against the Pistons. But those guys have both had pretty rough starts, and it's really hard to win against quality teams when 2 of your 3 star players are having really, really cold shooting nights. And if you want, you look down the rest of the roster, Coby was 4 for 14, Pat was 4 for 10. It's like DeRozan was 9 for 20, and DeRozan in this game was a minus 29, which is really tough to do. So when your best players are getting cooked, for almost negative 30 points there, it's just really tough to win. So, the OKC loss was kind of predictable. Actually, I think I predicted before the game that they were going to lose by 18 was my guess, because they just have always had trouble with the Thunder, and they're tinkering with their own stuff. and the Thunder, I think, are just ready to go, and they're really, really well coached by Mark Daigneault. So unsurprising there, but the showing against the Raptors and the Pistons, we can get into talking about, but kind of more of the same. With the Pistons game, I'm sorry, with the Toronto game, Vooch was 4 for 15, Zach was 3 for 14, Coby was 3 for 15, Pat was 1 of 5. It's just like, it's hard to win when you're shooting 35%, 37% from the field, 20% from three. Same thing. They took 39 threes in the Raptors game, only made 8 of them. It's just, brutal offense. So really, really difficult to win that way. Just really hard to do it. But, DeRozan and Caruso just kind of carried them through with some ridiculous officiating and shenanigans at the end of the game as well. But, the Toronto Raptors are a team that reminds me of the Bulls in a lot of ways. The difference is that, their top 5 pick, Scotty Barnes, they put the ball in his hands and they've let him cook. He had a triple-double the other night in overtime, shot 9 of 14 from the field, 22, 10, and 10. So, they're also kind of going nowhere. Yeah. They're very kind of similar to the Bulls, though, where they've got a star in his prime in Pascal Siakam. They've got really quality pieces, OG Anunoby, Jakob Poeltl, Precious Achiuwa, Gary Trent Jr., some quality pieces, but not really like a clear trajectory of where they want to go. And, they ended up winning that game, but just a really uninspiring win, I think, overall on that one as well. But, they went with the same starting lineup. And so far the lineup, that 5-man lineup has not done really well to start the season at all. And I think changes, could and probably should be coming to that starting lineup. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I wanted to hit on one point, excuse me, that you brought up about Scotty. And he had a great game. I believe he was a plus 15. He also, like you said, 22, 10 and 10, triple-double. But, he has 7 turnovers as well. And the reason why I bring that up is, they let him play through his mistakes. He's in a position where he can have these reps, he can play, he can turn the ball over and not have to worry about, being pulled or talking about activity, none like that. That's what I ultimately mean, right? Giving Pat what we talk about with reps and things like that. We're not saying that, oh man, he's going to turn right into the guy that we hope he can turn into. We're saying that just put the ball in his hands. There's nobody, for instance, with the Raptors, there's nobody on that team that should put him in a pecking order. There's, give him the ball. Let's see where it ends up. Let's see if he improves. Let's see if he turns into a guy that we thought we were drafting. And, hey, if we lose, that's fine. But at least we're going to be finding stuff out about our young stud, But anyway, that's what I wanted to bring up about the 7 turnovers. But I think here's the deal. I went on Bulls Gold with Salim and Ed, and my whole thing was, I just felt like with watching last season, bringing Patrick off the bench would have been the best thing. And for some that, there are the people that say, oh, well, he shouldn't be okay with that. This is our problem with him. He doesn't really care. He should want to start. But I felt, excuse me, man, I really feel like Torrey is just a perfect fit, because you brought it up earlier. This big three of Vooch, DeMar, and Zach, for some reason, they just need stellar role players to fit around them to bring the best out of them. And hey, that's not the way you want it to be, but if that's the way it is, let's do it. So I just thought starting Torrey Craig would be perfect to be alongside those guys. And I know Coby earned that starting position, and I'm not saying that he didn't, but I just think overall, in terms of fit, in terms of getting the best out of your five. I really felt like, putting Javon in that starting position. If Zach wants to handle the ball, okay, cool. Because Javon is not a point guard. He really isn't. He's more of a, kind of like an Alex Caruso. Like you could put him on the wing, he can guard. He's put him on the point of attack. He could do that stuff. And now you don't have another ball handler taking the ball out of Zach and DeMar's hands. They can do what they want to do, and they'll have the role players around them. And then you got Pat and Coby coming off the bench, which they both play really well together, and there's nobody in either of their way for them to play how they want to play, comfortable, get into their spots, things like that. And I think we've kind of seen it play out the way I had a feeling it would be early on, because Coby has improved so much. He really has. But the thing is about that is like, Zach wants the ball in his hands. DeMar wants the ball in his hands. Vooch is also wanting to do the post hub stuff. He wants to be a hub, the same kind of role he had with Orlando when he led some playoff teams there, and he was a part of a top 10, some top defenses there with some funky, rosters and stuff like that. And I just think right now we're seeing that this team, they just the starting five, at least, they just have to insert Torrey, and they have to insert. Well, maybe not Coby, maybe not Javon yet. Maybe just inserting Torrey will help at the moment. But I just think in order to help those guys function better, there has to be maybe a change. Because yes, I get it. I get it. What everybody's problem is with Pat. I get it. Okay, I'm not saying I don't. So if that's the thing, okay, let's get Torrey in there. And let's get it going. And I think that is probably, if I was Billy, that would be the change I'd make. Okay, I see my young guys struggling. Let's bring them off the bench. Let's get them some touches. Let's get them in some actions to get them going on the bench. Okay, and then later down the line, if his confidence is rising and he's playing some really good basketball, then yeah, we'll go ahead and we can insert him if Torrey's not playing well. But I think at the moment, to help both the starting five and Pat, you bring him off the bench, hopefully get his confidence rising up a little bit more on the offensive side of the ball. I think he's playing well defensively, but I think you got to make some type of change. If you don't want to go down, with a sinking ship, and you want to try to find a spark, I think you got to make at least one move.
Yeah, I agree with you. I would probably replace Coby and Pat in the starting lineup. And ideally, I would put Caruso in there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Torrey Craig. Or, I don't mind Pat. I just think Caruso does so much for that group.
Yeah.
He and Lonzo brought that group together so much. And they were just a great duo with them. But, you really want to be careful with Alex's minutes. He's always getting banged up out there. And I think Javon serves a kind of similar role in that way. And is a better 3-point shooter, not quite as good a defender, but Alex can definitely put the ball on the floor and do some playmaking, whereas Javon is much more of like a keep it moving kind of guy on offense. But yeah, I mean, I think Coby's done a really good job of trying to get in the teeth of the defense and kick out and play. But DeMar and Zach have both kind of complained about being in the corners when that happens. Like they're trying this new thing of offense, and it's really not catering to their style. And so I think Coby's improvements are being wasted a little bit. Yeah. When you have those guys out there. So yeah, if you're looking for just a better balance of the team and to maximize current wins, I would say having Coby and Pat come off the bench together would be ideal for both of their individual impact, and I think the team would probably function a little bit better with them, even though Coby and Pat are some of your best players. I would say Caruso is better than both of them right now, but I think Pat and Coby are better players overall than Torrey Craig and Javon Carter, but those guys also have been around for a while. They know their role and they're really good at it, where Coby and Pat are still growing. They're still kind of trying to find their way in the offense and the defense and just the schemes in general. So people are always people annoy me with Pat. They're like, well, will he ever be as good as Torrey Craig? And it's like, I can't even talk about that. Like, it's just,
it's who they're listening to, man. There's a lot of people that believe they know what they're talking about that say things like that. That's all it is.
I
man.
know, and we'll get into Pat a little bit more in depth. But just talking about finding a better way for this team, it does seem like that change is needed. It seems pretty obvious. It seems like Pat's probably on board with that, anyways. And I'm not sure what the goal is for them not doing that, or maybe they're just trying to do it a different way, and it's clearly not working so far. We'll see. It's early, but they've got a really, really tough schedule for the next month or so. It's just really tough. There's just not a lot of gimme games at all. Like the Pistons were supposed to be a win you can put on, you can bank on, and they got blown out by the Pistons, which we'll talk about as well. But I don't know. Like for me, I know we're both just kind of going on monologues here, and I want to have a little bit more of a back and forth discussion.
I know, right?
Me just doing all my thoughts dumped into one. But I want to talk. Let's talk about Pat, kind of back and forth, and the narrative of what's said about him, what he is struggling with versus what he's not. I will say, and let me know if you agree with me on this. The idea that Pat just stands around is kind of infuriating to me. This narrative that he just does nothing, and so we can break it down on offense and defense, because I think on defense it's just completely untrue. He's been a really good defender. I think he's been played as a low man, and his rotations have been on point. I had a little thread today about his 13 minutes against the Raptors. He only played 13 minutes, and he was a really, really good defender the entire time. I did not see a single obvious misrotation or miscommunication. Like he was on it. He was guarding up in people. He was coming over weak side to protect the rim. He was blowing up lob attempts. Like he was calling people out. He was switching. He was doing all these different things. So I thought he did a really good job on defense. Offense is where it's a little bit iffier. I think he just had a poor shooting night, which happens. He's currently shooting 27.8% from the field and 11% from 3-point range. So just a super cold shooting start to the season with 3-game sample. But what he's doing on offense is he's trying to set screens. He was setting some hammer, they're running hammer play. They're running pistol and zipper plays. Like he's trying to get himself open. He's trying to get his teammates open. He does do a little bit of ball handling where he'll kind of come off of a Vooch pick and roll and try and get into that free throw lane area. I wish he would get to the rim a little bit more. And, I want to talk about that as well. But I just think let's start with maybe defensively. What have you seen from his activity level so far?
I think sometimes I like to go back to when I watched him his rookie year to now, and the backside rotation, the weak side rim protection, the rotating, he used to be glued to his guy on the weak side corner when he should be, more into what he's doing now, where last game when the ball was on the opposite wing, the dude was sitting in the middle of the paint. And I'm like, yes, yes, let those guys know that don't even look here. It's not open. You know what I mean? So it's like, you love to see those rotations there, man. I mean, the rotations are there. I think some of the things that he can get better at, let me rephrase that. Some of the things that he, I just think that he probably he will struggle with for a while, if not his whole career, is just, he's just so big and it's so hard for him to get those shoulders over, running off like staggers and stuff like that.
Yeah, that screen navigation's a problem for him still. I mean, he's gotten better at it, but I think his frame is just unsuited for that kind of thing.
I mean, I don't think that's a knock on. I mean, like Giannis also has problem with stuff like that too. Like some of the best players in the league have problems with it. So it's just one of those things where he can try, he can continue to try to get better at it and working on, footwork and getting that shoulder, dipping that shoulder a little bit better. But it's easier said than done. What about you?
I think I agree. The screen navigation, I think he's gotten way better. And having Alex Caruso on the team seems to have rubbed off on everybody's screen navigation, because like Io's way better at it. Coby's way better at it. Coby especially has gotten way better at screen navigation, and that's something that actually Coby can do really well. I know we're on Pat, but I think Pat's rotations have been really, really on point so far this season.
Yeah.
His man-to-man defense has been good. He guarded all 5 Raptors from Dennis Schroeder to Jakob Poeltl and everything in between the first 2 or 3 minutes of that game, and was doing really well. Like, he switched on to each of those players confidently and, competently defended. It's like, that's a, Jakob Poeltl is a big boy, and Dennis Schroeder is crafty as heck. Like, he's, and he stayed with him. So I'm really impressed with his defensive aptitude. I also think his deflections have been, he's in the 30, he's 31st in the league right now in total in deflections per 36 minutes. They don't have a per 100 stat, so I couldn't get that one. But, Alex Bruce is 11th in the league at this point. So I think his activity level on the defensive end is really high. His cognitive athleticism on defense has improved, I think, tremendously. Like, his pattern recognition, his communication has improved. I really think people have undersold the leap that Pat has made on defense since his rookie year. Because his rookie year, you saw flashes of it, but all of that stuff was really inconsistent. And overall, he was a really poor defender on impact.
Yeah.
And last year, he was the number one. He had the best, was the most effective isolation defender in the league, like as far as field goal percentage or true shooting percentage of people that he was defending. So, like, that's a huge leap. I know he's not the best isolation defender in the league. Like, he's not that.
Yeah.
But the fact that he has gone from a defensive liability in his rookie season, then he missed most of his second year, and then his third season, so his second playing season, he turned it into a quality defender. Like, he's, and he was still struggling with some off-ball stuff, but he improved that. I think he's improved even further in the off-ball stuff to where I trust him out there for the most things. I just think people have not given him enough credit for the defensive strides that he's taken, over the last couple of years. He's become a really, really quality defender, a defender that can switch, pretty competently 2 through 4 and maybe 1 and maybe 5 sometimes. And, it's a skill set that every team in the league needs from a forward. And so the fact that he's got that already and just turned 22, I think is really impressive. But there's other stuff for sure. I think the activity level on the offensive end is what people are more concerned about. So I wanted to see what you thought about as far as his offensive activity level and, like, his motor. And do you see any issues with his motor in general?
I will say, I think people have different definitions of motor. I do. But I think that right now he's missing shots, man. I mean, he's taking the threes. He is, I think when someone doesn't get the ball as much as the stars on their team, that when they do make a mistake, it's loud, and I think that when you look at Pat and you see, what situations he's usually in order to try to score, it's a kick out. It's coming off a screen, and sometimes he may not even get the ball there. I think he's been doing a better job of doing some hard cutting, like 45 cuts. He's been cutting really hard. And also, I mean, if you look at, assisted turnovers, like I think right now he's at 3 turnovers for the whole season so far, to 6 assists. So it's like, you look at these turnovers that, the dribbling off the foot and things like that. Like, yes, you don't want to see it, but like, you would think he's doing it, he's averaging, 3 turnovers a game or 4 turnovers a game, like the way people talk about it. I mean, the ball handling has to get tighter for sure, but it's a little bit louder than people are making it out to be, in my opinion.
And you know why that is, Larro, or you know why I think it is when you only get a few opportunities, those make or break situations speak louder. For example, if you only get 3 shots a game or 5 shots a game, it's easy to get 0 points. Like if you just a little bit cold, you saw Coby and Pat both have 0 points in the Pistons game. And it wasn't like they weren't contributing out there, but you have a few bad shots and you only get 3 or 4, it's over. If you get 3 ball handling opportunities and you dribble, if you dribble off your foot twice, it looks way worse. And that's why I think if you really want him to improve, you got to give him reps. Like he needs 10 to 15 shots a game. He's not going to get 0 points on that.
Right.
The unevenness starts to even out with more shots, with more opportunity. Those things look a little bit like less crazy. But if you give him 13 minutes or 15 minutes, or you only give him 5 shots, like it's just not going to work itself out that way. And so a lot of people say, all right, well, Pat's he's got to take those. He's got to grab those opportunities, which I agree with in general. Hey, and I think he's gotten better at not passing up threes, not dribbling into the lane. There's clear areas of improvement, right? He needs to not hesitate on those threes. He's still doing that occasionally. And when he drives, I think he needs to go. I think he needs to try and get all the way to the rim, where he kind of takes 1 or 2 steps in and then kind of does a little fade away or tries to get to the elbow or kind of like the free throw line. I definitely think he could get to the rim better. He's clearly needs to improve there. But he just isn't getting a lot of opportunities right now, and whether it's because of the minutes or whether it's because of trying to fit in with people who are kind of higher on the offensive totem pole, like there just isn't a lot. So the mistakes and the goose egg performances, those stand out a lot more, and they're going to be more frequent. I don't know. That's kind of the way it is. Like if you ever play pickup, if I touch the ball once in a whole pickup game and I miss my shot, it's going to look like I did nothing all game. Like I may have been screening and passing and stuff, but I only got 1 shot. And sometimes that's just the way that, the way the game goes. So you get more opportunities, those you're going to look less streaky. You're going to be more consistent. So if you want consistent effort, you got to give consistent opportunity. That's kind of where I am at with it.
Yeah, I agree. And there are players where, you could, like for instance, Zach LaVine, right? Zach LaVine, you don't have to call one darn play for Zach. You could just roll the ball out, tip the ball up, and he's going to figure it out. He's going to figure it out. There are certain players in order to get them in rhythm, you got to run some things for them. Either, no matter if it doesn't have to be a whole set. It could be just, hey, Pat, we're going to run Chicago for you. Come off that screen and get downhill. If the guy goes under that screen, pull, right? Just put him in positions where he doesn't have to make all these different types of decisions. Have him run off actions. That's it. You don't have to do all these extravagant things for him, but it's just so funny how certain people minds work about this game. Not everybody's a Kobe Bryant. Not everybody's a Zach LaVine in terms of the scoring. Not everybody is a LeBron. Not everybody has the same mentalities, I should say, as these guys. You have to, and that's what coaching is all about. If coaching was, if you didn't have to manage egos, how a person learns, how they, what types of ways do they like to come off a screen? Where do they shoot well on the floor? Like that's what coaches are there for. That's what those big old staffs are there for, to help it. And I think, you want to play randomly, but I think when you got a young guy that is struggling to get going offensively, get him in actions. Put him in some actions. Me personally, I'd be having him be the guy coming off Chicago from the dribble handoff. Give him a little, kind of like what Coach Carlisle was doing for Benedict Mathurin, right? Benedict Mathurin didn't have the best handle, but to get into the teeth of the defense. But what he did is, okay, we had Caitlin on to talk about this, right?
I remember this discussion.
When you come off that screen, you're putting him in a position where the person is guarding him, they're behind. So now he has that little bit of a head start to get to the basket. And so it's like, that's what I mean by creativity and, getting a offensive coordinator, if you will, here that can give different ideas, right? Billy's just one guy, and those guys on the bench are just, they've been there for a while. There may be there might be and they may be in need of like a new voice, somebody that can come in and say, hey, I've been watching you guys for this long. Hey, maybe we should do this, or it's getting a little stale with what they run, so yeah.
Can I ask you, maybe I want to dig deeper into this a little bit. Number one, it seems like you're saying different players need different styles. Just like if you're teaching in a classroom, people respond to different styles of teaching, and you can't just say, hey, Bobby's doing this. Why can't you just do what Bobby's doing? And it's like, well, Bobby is going to learn different this way. Bobby's got different skill sets than Danny or or Sally or all these random white people's names. But it's like, I'm just thinking of this idea of people for some reason in basketball don't think that way. Like they just think, oh, well, anyone can rebound and cut and know and have this timing if they just worked hard, if they just had a high motor. And people told Pat to do this, right? They said, well, why can't Pat just do what Javonte Green does? Why can't he just do what Torrey Craig does? Why can't he just fit into that role? And it's like, well, sure, anyone can rebound, anyone can cut, but those instincts, that role, like people learn differently, people react differently, people have different dispositions. And so just because Pat isn't doing those things exactly the way that those guys are, doesn't mean that he's less valuable. It may mean he fits in a different slot, right? It may mean he needs to come off the bench or he needs to be next to different people. But I think people just tend to see him as a plug and play type player, and he's never been that. I don't know why people continue to think he's a plug and play player, but he clearly has a different mentality. And I'm not saying this is good or bad. It's just different, and people think it's automatically bad that Pat is generally kind of like he'll defer to teammates. Mm-hmm. People are like, oh, he doesn't have that killer mentality. Well, you don't know that. Like that. I don't think that means that specifically. You just have to approach it in a different way. And so, you got to run stuff for it, as you're saying. So I had a question here at some point. I was going to ask you a question, but instead I'm just rambling. But we're talking about these learning styles. And as a coach, you have to now what I wanted to ask you was, as a coach, does having to run certain plays or get your players in certain actions mean that player doesn't have the right mentality, or that you're spoon feeding stuff to him, or you're giving like some unearned reps to somebody? Because that's kind of the discussion that is around Pat, is that, well, we shouldn't have to do this stuff for him. He should just go get it. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that seems a little short-sighted, but it's a really popular opinion. And I'm sure there's some merit to it, but I'm just curious, in your experience as a coach, do those types of things mean that someone's entitled or getting entitlement minutes, or that they shouldn't have to run? You shouldn't have to design plays for them or put them in certain positions to succeed. Can you break that down for me? Because I'm curious.
No, I think that mentality of, he should just be able to go get it. And just take Pat out of the situation for a second. Just take any player that's young, that is still learning the NBA game, that hasn't really been put into a spot where he can just be, put around a lineup where he can experiment and he can he can try different things. He can learn what he does well, what he doesn't do well, where he needs to improve at, things like that. Right. But if you're in a situation like, for instance, the Bulls are in right now, where you are trying to win and you are in need of the young guy to find some confidence, to be able to score the ball, try to get him in positions to where he can score the ball. Like, yes, you want to get him, you want to find an action that he likes to do. Like, for instance, like Kevin Huerter, when he was with the Atlanta Hawks, one of the actions they loved to do for Kevin Huerter was Ricky screen. right? Where he would run down depending on where he is on the floor. The one guy would screen for him going down like a back screen, and then that screener would turn around and set like a pin down for him to come right back off that same screener. Right. And it was just ways for him to get to spots on the floor, to get his shot off, comfortability, getting him feeling like he's in the game. I mean, there are countless players in the NBA that have certain actions they love to do to, get them going. It doesn't have to be someone that needs to get confidence. It may just be, getting that player in the zone, getting that player, it's almost like a quarterback in football where either first play of the game, first pass play of the game, you want to get them something real easy, nice quick out, something underneath, get them a completion, get them some rhythm. It's same thing in basketball.
We see this with bigs all the time. Is like that first play is almost always run for a big to kind of get that big a nice easy shot, right, to get them going.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure you played in open gyms too, but like bigs, man, when they don't feel like they're involved, they get a little antsy. They get, hey man, I'm doing all this cardio and all this other stuff. Man, let me get some touches.
Yep.
But I mean, that's just basketball, dog. Like, I mean, you as a coach, you gotta bring the best out of your players. And again, we're both not in Advocate Center during their practices. We don't know how he's responding to the coaching. And again, that goes back to what you're saying. Maybe the way Billy is talking to him is not the way he needs to help him learn, right? Like Lowry talked about it, right? And like, man, I had to experience things. Like I learned that if I did this on a screen, that this is not going to work. When he was talking on the JJ Redick pod, he talked about like what he had to learn and that helped him become a player that he's turned into, you know? And I think people, they see the NBA next to the player's name and they think, oh man, like there are certain things that they need to already be good at. And I'm sorry, man, like these are the best athletes in the world. And it takes a little while, man. The special ones, they come in and there are some special ones, as I say, there are some special ones that come in right away, boom, take off. Right. And there's other guys that are like Jimmy, man. Jimmy, it took a little while. Right. And then once Jimmy got it, he took off and he was able to become the guy he is today. I mean, Pascal Siakam's another player, man. He came in and people were like, well, man, I don't know about this guy. And all of a sudden he turned into a guy, So yeah, it really just, it all depends. And for some fans, I think a lot of it is too that, especially for us, like I can speak for myself, but I wasn't coherent, when MJ was doing his thing. Like I didn't really pay attention to Bulls basketball when I was 8. Like I was more so a Bears fan, and I didn't really, really get into Bulls basketball heavy until like Kirk Heinrich and the Baby Bulls around that time. So, fans that have been around for a long time, they're antsy. They're ready to see another championship. They're ready to be perennial, guys in the playoffs. And I get it. They don't want to have to wait around for a young guy. But I'm sorry, man. Like this is how it goes. Either you trade them and you do something else, or you gotta just, you gotta hope for the best for the guy, And so, yeah, that's just where I'm at on it with that situation.
So this leads me to, I think, one of the most important questions, which is, let's say, hypothetically, that Patrick Williams was the perfect role player, right? That he hit his open shots, that he was diving for offensive boards, that he's scoring 12 to 15 points a game, that he looks confident out there, right? Like he's the perfect role player on this team. And my question is, and I asked it to our good friend Mark Curran-Solis today, do you think that if he was the perfect role player, the guy that everyone is clamoring for him to be in this role right now, that the ceiling of the Bulls or their trajectory as a franchise would change significantly? I wanted to see what your answer to that would be.
The ceiling? You're saying?
Like would the team's aptitude change, right? Like, do they go from a first round exit to a second round exit, or a play-in team to a playoff team? Like, does their trajectory change significantly if Patrick Williams becomes the perfect role player this season?
To me, no, because I just don't. I don't believe in the 3 top guys.
There you go.
That's just
right. To me, that's the clear answer is absolutely not. Like, would it be nice? Would the team improve? Yes. But ultimately, Patrick Williams is supposed to be the X factor. We've talked about this for years, right? Like, hey, the team's only going to go as far as Patrick Williams goes. But the thing is, if we want Patrick Williams to be a role player, which is what has been provided to him and the opportunities that have been provided to him, all right, if he's the perfect role player, does the team really change ultimately? I really think the answer is no. And so if grooming him to be a perfect role player isn't going to help this team really win, then what are we doing here? Like, why are we grooming him to be a role player? He's not training with DeMar in the offseason to be a spot up 3 guy. Like, he's not putting all this work to be Torrey Craig in 10 years, in 5 years. He's not doing that. And no disrespect to Torrey Craig, who has carved out a really nice role for himself and is a great player, but that's not what Patrick wants. And that's not why he was picked 4th. And this is an interesting thing because most people that are picked in the top 5 are put onto teams that stink and where there's room for them to grow, to make mistakes, to play through mistakes, to have lots of turnovers, to take lots of shots, to be bad. This is how most teams that are picking in that section of the lottery are designed. And it's for a good reason. It's so that these guys that are picked high, who have high upside, can reach that potential. And it's hard to think of many examples of guys that were picked where Pat was picked and have not gotten that opportunity. The one that first comes to mind is James Wiseman to me. Because James Wiseman was picked by the Warriors, who just happened to be in this weird down year because Steph and Clay and all these guys were all injured at the same time. And they basically took a year off and then tried to come back. And James Wiseman tried to fit in with that in a win now team. And we saw kind of how that went, right? And it's not because James Wiseman is necessarily a bad player. I don't think we had enough data to say yay or nay on that.
Right.
It's just, it was not a situation where James Wiseman could grow and just be a rookie, a normal high lottery pick rookie. And now it's like, now he's in Detroit and, maybe he'll get some more opportunity there. That's maybe a better situation for him. But ultimately the Warriors had to pivot because they couldn't give James the time and investment that James needed to become a good player and become all that he could be because of where the Warriors were. And I see a similar thing happening to Patrick Williams, where we have all these expectations of Patrick Williams to be a star or to even be a star role player, but he's not being afforded the capabilities and the time and investment to do so. And some people are going to disagree with me. That's fine.
Yeah.
Some people think that he has had ample opportunity. I think 2 seasons are not enough. I don't think he's had these 3 guys ahead of him for most of his career.
Yeah.
And I don't see that investment there. And so I would be more fine with it if we could say, well, Pat can just grow at his pace and just be a role player for right now because it's worth it.
Yeah.
It's worth it to have to stunt his ultimate potential and development in order for this team to win. But the problem is, unlike the Warriors, this team doesn't have championship aspirations. That's the problem. The problem is stunting Pat's development or not investing properly in Pat's development, in my opinion, what would be a proper investment in his development, comes at a cost. And is the cost worth it? Right? And to me, the answer is no, it's not worth it. We've seen what this team can do. We've seen how good our best players are. We've seen the ceiling on this team. It is hard to think of a team in the NBA that has worse championship equity now and in the future than the Chicago Bulls. I cannot think of a team that is worse set up to win a championship in the next 5 or even 10 years than the Bulls. Like we just don't have anything. Patrick Williams is the only thing right now that we have that's tangible that we could say, I can even squint and see a star in here. I can squint. If I squint really hard, I might be able to see a star in Patrick Williams. And the only possible person that even has tangible star potential, we're just saying, just be a role, just spot up from the corner, dive for offensive boards, defend the best, like just be a role guy, because these other three guys have to get their own and they have to eat. And to me, it's like, I just don't see the upside to that. I think you're wasting the asset that is Patrick Williams and wasting his potential and basically guaranteeing that he's going to have to find it somewhere else, or that he's just never going to be the player that we hope. And like we brought up with Scotty Barnes, the Toronto Raptors are also in a similar position where they've got good players. That they're kind of in this a similar tier as the Bulls, but they're just saying, well, we got to find out who Scotty is. They believe in Scotty. They're putting the ball in his hands. They're gonna roll with it. And they may suck this year. They may be good this year, but they're gonna find out who he is.
Yep.
And to me, it's like, if the Bulls go this entire year and he gets to restricted free agency and they do not know who Patrick Williams is, I think that's a huge failure. A huge failure on the franchise. So, that's why I think I would be way more okay with this if the Bulls had a real future that they were sacrificing Pat's development in order to achieve. But the thing is, I don't think that they're going to achieve their future with Pat as a role player. And I don't think they're going to achieve their future with Pat in any other role. And until that changes, I just, that's my ultimate thing with Pat. I'm frustrated with Pat for sure, right? He does frustrating things. He's a very raw player in a lot of ways still. Like, I'm not going to discount the fact that he needs a lot of development or that he's struggling in a lot of areas. I'm not just going to discount that. I'm not discarding that. I'm not saying that that's not happening. It's all true. But I think the idea that because he's the number 4 pick, he should be a star player, but he's also not allowed to be a star player, and we want him to be pigeonholed in this role player role, just doesn't jive. It just doesn't work that way. And it's also just not worth doing what we're doing with him right now. It's just silly. I just don't see any real outcome to it. So I don't know what else to say on it. We keep doing the same thing with Pat, and we're asking him to be something that he doesn't want to be, and we're asking him to do it for a reason that doesn't make sense. And so why not? Yes, it's entitlement minutes. Yes, this is why you picked him 4th.
Yep.
These top 5 picks, they get entitlement minutes. They get entitlement reps. That's what's supposed to happen. That's why they picked him at 5. You don't do that to your 30th pick or your 60th pick, or you don't do that with those guys, because they don't have that aptitude in your eyes. And some of them do end up being that way. But yes, you're supposed to give him entitlement minutes. That's supposed to happen. You're supposed to give him entitlement reps. And if you're not doing that, then you can't expect him to be the star or the player that you want him to be. It's just not going to happen that way. And I don't know. I'm so frustrated with the situation. I just think they're running out of time with Pat. They're running out of time with it. And some of it's Pat's fault and some of it's not his fault. But both things have to change.
Yeah. I think you hit it on the head. I just think, you hit it on the head, man. I don't have really much else to add to that. But I did have.
Sorry.
I did have. No. I mean, I was sitting here like, yeah. Like I was in my head. I'm like, yeah, you killing it, brother.
Does this remind you? Does this remind you of Lowry and Wendell a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, people. Yeah, yes, it does. It really does. I mean, I remember, Lowry, his press conferences, he would say, when you got moved to the bench, I believe I'm a star player. I believe I'm a starter, but since, I'm a team player, I'll come off the bench. Mm-hmm. People were clowning him then, oh, you're not a star player. You're not, and then, Wendell Carter Jr., you can't even guard Joel Embiid. You're not a 5. You can't catch oops. You can't do this. You can't do that. And then he goes on to the Magic, and we're like, wait, we had that here, and we just did what? And it's like, we're gonna do that with Pat, right? And again, like, who knows? Maybe they will sign him again, but you know, it's the same stuff all over again. You know, oh, this guy is, this and he's that. He doesn't have a motor. He doesn't have this. He doesn't have that. And what's going to happen is he's going to go to another team with a coach that sees potential in him. Because here's the deal: Coach Popovich doesn't want you just because you're trash. Coach knows basketball. So
the Pistons, by the way, were really, really intent on drafting Patrick Williams.
Yep.
And tried to trade up to do so. Just saying. And so did the Detroit Pistons. But what was curious about Lowry, I know we'll move on, but with Lowry, they tried to put the ball in Lowry's hands. Like they gave him every opportunity to be a star, and he showed flashes of it. And he showed more than Patrick Williams, but he also had way more opportunities to actually put the ball in the basket than Pat has had.
Yeah.
And even then, it took Lowry 3 teams to get where he is now.
Yep.
It took him 6 years. And it's like we saw all those flashes in Lowry, but there were a lot of things he just wasn't doing consistently. And I thought, even though he was on a bad team, he was treated like a top pick, right? He was like, hey, we're gonna put the ball in your hands. You and Zach, you guys are a 1-2 punch, right? On offense. Even with Wendell. Now, Wendell, a lot of people didn't see the star potential. We just thought, hey, he seems like a really solid all-around player, which he has been. But one of the things we wanted him to do was shoot more threes and become more of a passing hub. And Coach Billy Donovan put him in that position as soon as he got here. And he got, up until he got traded, he got that whole season worth of reps to do so. And you know what? He got a lot better in that. And he had a lot of struggles and he had a lot to play through. But the coach, gave him the opportunity. Now, the fans certainly didn't. The fans clowned Wendell Carter Jr. all day long, all season long, and told him how much trash he was and how he didn't have a motor and all these different things. And then he gets traded, and it's like, oh, actually he does, and he's doing all the same things he was here, except the fan base isn't crazy and stupid and like just blaming everything on him. And so I just watch it with Pat, and it's maybe Pat amounts to nothing better than he is right now. It's totally possible. Totally possible. I'm not saying he's a star. I still think he has the potential to be, but he may never pan out at all. But the way that we're going about it is so similar to how these other guys have been treated by the fan base. And it's like, I just think if we're talking about Pat's rebounds on a nightly basis, we have missed the boat, man. Just completely missed the boat. It's like, yes, he's 6'7", and he's averaging less rebounds than you would like. And you think because he's big that he should be doing so. I get it. You're right. But man, like there's way bigger problems we got going on right now than whether or not Patrick Williams is rebounding. By the way, his offensive rebounds are currently at a career high at this point in 3 games into the season. And so are his 3-point attempts. They're also at a career high right now. And so are his steals are at a career high 3 games in. So even though he's shooting like butt from the field right now, he's doing really well. Like he's doing the things that we want him to do as far as activity level, as far as the things we want him to focus on.
Yep.
He just can't shoot right now. And it's like, but people are freaking out and they're like calling him a bust again. And it's really, I'm so frustrated. And it's happened with Wendell, and it happened with Jimmy Butler. And it's like, I'm so tired of, and Nikola Mirotic is another guy. I'm so tired of talking about this guy. Like fans have made me into like talk about these guys and defend them so much. Not because I'm not necessarily like big fans of these players. Even with Zach LaVine, people have done this to me. But because the things that people hate on them for and criticize them for are so ridiculous sometimes that I feel the need to be like, guys, let's use some common sense for once. Like just think before you just say these ridiculous things. Like, and there's so many ridiculous things said about Pat. It just bugged me. So I don't know. We could go on a lot about Patrick Williams. You and I are probably higher than most on him, or just feel that there's a lot of untapped potential there. In Pat, and it's just like they just don't care. They're just not really doing much with
not
it.
At all.
So I don't know. We'll see what happens, but with this team, we know what the big three are going to do. And we talked about this last week, but people are like, well, we know what they are, so we can't really expect anything more from them. But you said it on Twitter this week. Like, you can talk about role players all you want, but you're only going to go as far as the stars take you. And the organization's working backwards. Instead of getting role players that are made better by their stars, they're trying to make their stars better through finding better role players. And it's just like they're doing it all backwards.
Yeah, you think about last season, the Lakers, right? One of our good friends, Steph No, brought up how the Lakers is a prime example of what role players can do for your team. You can go from being a horrible, not even in the top 10 of teams, to going to Western Conference Finals. But again, like I told him, my rebuttal would be that LeBron James and Anthony Davis were the guy. They were consistent. They were the guys of that team. They just needed players that can come in and kind of accentuate like what they do, like complement what they do. Right now, with the star players that the Bulls have, it's not really that way. You have Vucevic having career lows in a lot of spots in his games. Outside of that OT fourth quarter from DeMar, it hasn't been the same. Zach LaVine, outside of the 51 points, hasn't been, he leads the team right now with 11 turnovers through 3 games. And, yeah, you can have the right role players, but if those guys are not playing at a level where it's like you can't even look their way, you can't even say like, no, it's not those guys. They're doing what they're supposed to do. We need to find role players. No, it's not that right now. It's everybody's playing bad. And so if everybody's playing bad, you can't look at the role players. You can't look at the role players and be like, well, man, Zach LaVine is our star scorer, and one of our star scorers, I should say. But hey, Torrey Craig, that guy, or hey, Patrick Williams, you're playing terrible. You gotta. And Billy Donovan, I think, said things last season about how, hey, look, our 3 stars have got to be the guys.
Yeah.
He said that last season, and it's like everybody forgot that even Billy said that last season. So
thing is, you fans gotta listen to Billy. Billy is really smart.
Yeah,
you gotta listen to him. He's always got it. He's always hit it right on the head. He's never said something basketball wise that I've really disagreed with. Fans don't listen to him. The announcers don't listen to him. Like, Stacey King's calling out a bunch of stuff, and then Billy will say the opposite at the post game press conference. So keep going, but like Billy's a smart coach, man. He's a good coach.
He is, and
he knows what's up.
I've never criticized him about not being a smart coach. I just wish he was a little bit more creative on the offensive end. But I think when people listen to the pressers, they listen for confirmation bias. If Pat's having a bad game, they're waiting for Billy to talk about Pat. So they can go to Twitter and Billy said this, and see, this is what we're talking. They don't sit down and listen to Billy answer these questions and say, okay, and learn. They don't do that. They're going to the presser to listen for things that can give them some confirmation bias of how they feel about a certain player. So it is what it is, man. I had a question for you though.
Yes, sir.
This is when I was looking at the synergy page of the Bulls, I thought this was pretty funny. But who do you think is tied with Alex Caruso with 10 stocks, tied with number 1 on the team with 10 stocks with Alex Caruso? Who do you think is tied with him?
I want to say Torrey Craig, but I'm probably wrong.
You are.
Dang it. This is the first time I've ever been wrong. First time. This is tough, man. I gotta sit with this one for a second. I'm just kidding. You gonna say Patrick Williams? This is my guy, Patrick Williams.
Pat is 4th.
Okay. DeMar DeRozan?
Wow, this guy. Yeah, it's DeMar DeRozan with 10 stocks.
Dude, DeMar, man. DeMar has actually been really impressive. He's taking charges. He's got quick hands. He's gotten a lot better or a lot more engaged as a defender since he got to Chicago. I'll just say, like, I think he's been. It's hard. It's hard to be a top 5 defense with Zach, DeMar, and Vooch all on the floor all year long, playing like 75 games plus, all of them. It's really hard to be a top 5 defense if they're not pulling their weight. I think all of them are way better defenders or have been way more engaged defensively than they're given credit for. And DeMar's among them because DeMar had a really bad defensive reputation before he came here. And he's been doing some stuff, man. So that does not surprise me.
And I think when we talk about, at least for me, when we talk about like, hey, the stars have to lead the charge, I'm not really talking on the defensive side of the ball. I'm talking more offensive side of the ball with those guys. So it is really cool to see DeMar DeRozan up there. I mean, it popped off the screen with, when I was like, wait, DeMar? Wow, okay, here we go.
DeMar's doing it, man. Hey, I know you had some team stats that were really depressing, and I wanted to ask if you could read those off if you got them. Because talking about the Stars not playing well, like the whole team has been playing really bad. Even in that Toronto game, I know we won that game, but my goodness, that was an awful game in some respects. So, let me know what your stats are.
So, we want to go to assists to turnovers. Coby doing a really good job with 13 assists to 4 turnovers. We got Zach with 4 assists to 11 turnovers. Vucevic, 6 assists to 8 turnovers. DeMar DeRozan is doing a good job, 9 assists to 3 turnovers. But in terms of, as a team, with the,
I know you're looking at like 4 factors and things, and offensive rating, defense. It's all pretty bad right now.
Yeah, I mean, it is pretty bad, man. I mean, if you just go to like the Chicago Bulls, just for the 3 games played, and look at like their play types, shot types. I mean, spot up, below average. Pick and roll ball handlers, average, which is really good because I think Kobe's been doing a good job. And transition, which used to be a strength for them, should be a strength for them, below average. Isolation, we have 2 of the better isolation players in the game, just average. Offensive rebounds, below average. Handoffs, average. I mean, it hasn't been a good start. Jump shooting, poor. Shooting off the dribble, below average. It's just a lot of bad basketball going around, and I'm just, I just say those things to say like, hey, man, I mean, again, we could talk about the role players all we want, but you don't go play the Lakers and talk about, Rui Hachimura. You the first thing you talking about is how are we going to handle LeBron James and Anthony Davis, right? You go play the Denver Nuggets. The first 2 players you're going to be talking about, Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. How are we going to stop that 2-man action? You look at all the best teams in the NBA. That's just how it goes. So, once you get past the stars, then you start, okay, hey, we can get this. We can I don't know, top block Jamal. Okay, now we're gonna have to worry about how are we gonna play Michael Porter? Are we gonna live with him being open from below from the corner? We're gonna give up. What are we gonna? That's when you move on to say, hey, what are we gonna do with the role guys? But you always are gonna start with the stars. What do we have to do to slow those guys down? And that's why when I look online and I see all these things about Pat, about Coby, I've been seeing some things. So it's like, guys, we're missing what is that saying? We're missing the forest for the trees.
Yep.
Like that's
the forest for the trees.
That's what we're doing right now.
By the way, we're the offense right now, 25th in the NBA, defense 17th in the NBA. So the offense has not improved. The defense has gotten way worse. Their point differential right now is negative 11.7, which is also 26th in the league. So just not good. They're just right now, they're just really terrible. So I know we really didn't get into the Pistons game, but the Pistons have a bright future, right? They got Cade. Some of the stuff they were doing for Cade, like he had one where he was coming out in transition, and they just set a screen. They just did a little handoff for him, kind of at the right slot, and he had a head of steam, and he just went right to the basket, and just But they've got the Bulls playing the Pacers on Monday, and you best believe that the Pacers are going to be a destructive force. Tyrese Halliburton, Miles Turner, Benedict Mathurin, those guys are Bruce Brown. They're 2-0 right now. ESPN's got them 65.5% matchup prediction as the winner. They're favored by 2.5 points right now, or 3 points right now. That changed recently, but that's gonna be a really tough game. After that game, then they've got 3 more games this week. They visit the Mavericks at home on Wednesday. They're back home against the Nets on Friday. And then a back-to-back. They go immediately from home on Friday against the Nets to in Denver against the Nuggets on Saturday, which to me sounds like an instant loss. And then, next week they got the Jazz, the Suns, the Pistons, the Bucks, the Magic twice, the Heat twice, the Thunder again, the Raptors again, the Nets, Celtics, Bucks. Like that takes them to the end of November. That's a brutal, brutal stretch where I could see the Bulls winning like 1 or 2 of the next 10 games. And if they don't get it together, if they keep playing like this season's going to be over really, really, really fast. So hopefully they can get it together. As we've said, their stars have been disjointed, playing really, really poorly. The role players look disjointed, playing poorly. I mean, some of the role players have been fine. Patrick and Coby have kind of had their struggles, and clearly not in their element right now. I think Coby's. You said he won the starting job. He did. He's improved a lot. But his best role right now may be off the bench, and ultimately, I would love to give Coby and Pat and Io and Julian Phillips and Dalen a lot more runway to just be young players and to work through their mistakes. And at the cost of wins, yes, I'm willing to sacrifice the wins at this point. I've seen enough of this movie. We thought it was going to change this year. The preseason didn't give us much hope. The first 3 games of the season haven't given us much hope. And I think we're going to find out here by the end of next month where we're at. And I expect the Bulls to be in a very similar situation, or at least to me reaching the same conclusion that this team just isn't good enough. The stars don't fit well together. And it's not enough. So to me, it's, you need to make major changes. You need to invest in your young players, invest in restocking your draft assets, bringing in more development coaches, bringing in an offensive coordinator. If you're going to stick with Billy for a long time, you just need to do stuff a little bit differently at this point, because I'm not seeing a lot of upside here. And as much as I love watching Zach, Vooch, and DeMar, they're all great individual players. They all seem like great guys. It just, it's run its course, and they know it. You can just tell the way that they talk about it. They keep talking like it's the last dance. And it's like, they know if they don't get together, the major changes are coming, and they should. Major changes should be coming. That's, it's just a matter of when at this point.
Well, for me, they could talk about the last dance, but for me, I mean, the DJ's putting his equipment away, the speakers are being put in the back of the trunk.
It's the last dance instead.
Yeah, I just, it's time, man. I mean, gosh,
this is week 2, baby. But the thing is, Larro, I would be really excited, honestly, to have an 18-win season if it meant I got to find out what Coby and Pat and Dalen and Julian are as players. Yep. I would love that because it would give me it would let me know what the future holds. Either, hey, these guys are really good. No, we gotta find some of the pieces, or hey, these guys aren't it. Maybe they're just role players. That's fine. They're young enough. Like let's get Cooper Flag. Let's get these guys coming up. Let's get Cam Boozer. Like let's get these guys that are coming up, right? Like we've got that Spurs pick, top 10 protected. Let's make sure we're in the top 10 that year. It's gonna be a really good draft. Like this is the time. No one else is tanking in the NBA except for the Wizards. This is the perfect time to tank.
Perfect
time. Ship your players out. Put the ball in Pat's hand. Put the ball in Kobe's hand. Get Julian Phillips some reps at the 4. Like find a young center that you can develop. Just do it, man. Just make some stuff happen. And the product is going to suck this year, but it's sucking right now for no reason.
Exactly.
So at least find out what you got. Get some stuff for DeMar. Please, like DeMar deserves to be on a good team. Zach deserves to be on a good team. Vooch deserves to be on a good team. Alex Caruso deserves to win another championship. Please do the right thing. Put them on good teams. These guys need it. These guys deserve it. They don't deserve to be here. This is ridiculous. Like they know they're wasting their careers here. They know it. And they're getting paid good money to do it, but my goodness, it's time.
I think if I was AK, man, I this may sound corny, but I'd write a letter out to all the fans and just say, hey, look, I failed you. You're the first time. What I thought could be a perennial, playoff team. But I think, we got to do what's right. And it's time to kind of get these guys, so many words out of here and try to build it through the draft. And hopefully we can, become appealing to certain players, but we got to build this the right way. And so, either fans will either say, hey, F you, or, hey, we appreciate that. We appreciate the honesty, and let's just make sure we, keep it that way and not say, hey, we're going to do this and then go get a 80-year-old Rondo.
Well, because the other, I think the most likely option at this point is either they admit their mistake or the players do it for them.
Yep.
You're gonna hear right. DeMar is not signed an extension for multiple reasons, but one of them is he's trying to see what the Bulls are going to be this season, and if he's out, I think you're gonna hear it from him.
Yep.
You're gonna hear it from Zach. You're already hearing it from Vooch.
Yep.
Like these guys are not going to sit around and waste the best, the waning years of their career in Vooch and DeMar's situation. And Zach, obviously, he wants to win. He's tired of losing. He should be tired of losing. He's been part of 2 of the worst organizations in basketball his entire career. I'm sure he would love to be somewhere like the Lakers or Miami or Boston or like one of these franchises that would appreciate him and has a role for him that fits him. And, it's a joke at this point. So I think it's just like John Paxson, Michael Reinsdorf didn't have the balls or didn't, whatever it was. I'm sorry. Like that's kind of vulgar, but Michael Reinsdorf didn't want to do the right thing and fired Paxson and Gar Forman. He just didn't do it. And so Paxson had to do it for him. Paxson walked in and said, hey, I think it's time for a change. So we need Acme to do the right thing here. Or we need a Michael Reinsdorf to step in and say, hey, this isn't working. We got to change course.
Yeah.
And I would say this, as I said last season, even if the Bulls win like 15 straight games, I would still think that this is the right path. So I enjoy watching Bulls basketball, whether it's hilarious for good reasons or hilarious for bad reasons. I mostly enjoy it because there's always something you can take out of it. But, it's I think the writing's been on the wall for a long time on this one. It's just a matter of, they've been rebuilding. They started rebuilding the moment they made the Vooch trade. The moment they made that trade, they started the clock on their rebuild. It's coming. It's just a matter of whether or not they intend to do it or whether it's going to hit them in the butt on the way out. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But week 2, baby. Week 2.
Hey, man.
Anything around the league that you want to chat about? I mean, it's been fun. Pacers have been off to a good start. The Pistons look promising. there's some fun stuff. Like Boston's cooking, Philly's doing really well. Like there's a lot of fun stuff going around in the league.
I think for me, what I'm liking, what I like to see is, Chet. I love the way he's looking. I think I'm a big fan of Chet. I think he's going to be a really good player. I like to see, you know, these young guys that came into the league that are, starting to flourish. Tyrese Maxey, being able to play without James Harden for a bit and looking pretty good. I don't know. Like, I think it's the youth, these young guys, because at some point, Kevin Durant and, LeBron and all these guys are going to get out of here. So you gotta, start to find out who those next stars are going to be. And I'm really looking forward to seeing those guys, see how they continue to get better. And I'm also liking the way Ben has been looking, Ben Simmons. I think that he's coming along pretty good. I mean, I don't know if he'll ever be the 2010 guy he was at one point, but I mean, I'll take 10 points, 8 assists, 10 rebounds, 2 steals, 2 blocks all day. So, and with that perimeter defense that he brings and the offense that he creates in the, half court transition, I'll take that all day. And I think that it's been cool to see him kind of, fight the demons and get back out and play some basketball at a high level.
Yeah, I agree. I think the league's in a really, really good spot. We should have expansion teams coming real soon. And just a lot of I do think that the league has done a great job making the league have more parity among teams last few years. And I think it's really improved the product. It's nice not to know who's going to the finals, who's going to be the best team. Like, you got a lot of projections between like 38 and 48 wins on these teams. A lot of teams are kind of in the middle, and it makes for a lot more drama and a lot more fun, and really shows you kind of who's going to break out and who's not. So more to look forward to. I think we'll be able to talk about more around the league stuff hopefully next week. I know today was real focused on the Bulls issues, but they've reared their ugly heads for sure in these first 3 games, and we got 4 games to analyze by the time we talk again. So looking forward to it. 4 games, and hopefully, even if the Bulls aren't doing well, we can watch these other teams, and there's a lot of fun things going on with them. So, Larro, any final thoughts before we head out here?
Yeah, I'm just gonna every game I'm gonna try to find something to be excited about. So that's my goal. Every Bulls game, no matter if it's a loss or win, try to find something that is exciting that to talk about on here. But hey, I guess my last thought will be, as much as I don't believe in this big 3, I hope for the best. I really do. So, I'm not saying I don't believe in them and that, when they win, I'm like, oh God, I don't want to see them. No. I want to see them win, but at the same time, I know that even if they get you 45, 40, 40 wins, you're not going to go too far from there. So that's just where I am. But at the same time, I want to see them win. So I'm hoping that, hey, maybe we go 4-0, baby. Maybe we go 4-0. You never know. You know what I mean?
It'd be fun. Yeah. You're right, Larro. Being a fan does not mean always being happy with the team. Being a fan means you are invested in their success. And we want to see these guys succeed. We want the Bulls to succeed. And, sometimes we're critical of them, but it's because we really care about it. If I didn't care, if I was apathetic about it, I wouldn't be doing this. I wouldn't be a Bulls fan. Sometimes I have people in my mentions are like, why are you so negative all the time? It's well, it's not like I want to be negative. It's I see real issues. We've got to address these issues. We've got to call them out so that they get addressed, because ultimately if they get addressed, it's going to make the team better. It's going to make the experience better. And ultimately, the fans deserve that. So, we're going to keep calling it as we see it. And hopefully, if you guys have questions, we're happy to answer them. I always love engaging as long as you're respectful. I love engaging with different minds. Reasonable people can differ. There's a lot of people in the Bull sphere that I disagree with on certain aspects of the game, but I respect the work that they put in. I respect their opinions, and that's part of being a fan and being a student of the game. So yeah, lots more to come, and excited for the season, no matter what it holds. And we'll end it there, and we'll see you guys next week. Peace.
Peace.